This will be part 6 of the restoration of my AMX. Okay, I'm going to be removing the intake manifold and seeing what I can find that caused my one of my push rods to snap. I'll be disconnecting the linkage to my carburetor. There's a little snap. Right there that I need to remove. Next, removing the spring. Discus pulls off and this slides out. Just like that. I'm removing the vacuum hose going from the intake manifold to the power booster, brake power booster. I've got the hose, vacuum hose, removed from the power booster. This connection gets pulls off. Connects to there. Not exactly sure what that does or what it's called. Comment if you know what it is and what it does. I'll be removing this inline fuel filter next to get it out of my way. The inline fuel filter gets held in place with spring clamps. Be taking a pair of pliers to remove them. I got that removed. The hose going to the line that's going to the fuel pump. I'll be removing all these wires and hoses, vacuum hoses, to get them out of my way. Moving the spark plug wires out of my way. I'll be removing the coil and the vacuum hoses on the passenger side of the motor. Getting them out of my way so I can get to the bolts that hold the intake manifold to the heads. Next, I'll be removing this hose that went to the smog pump. Had to do with smog emission back in the day. It's just held on with a spring clamp. I'll be using an old egg crate to organize bolts going to my valve cover. The valve covers are held on with 1/4-inch bolts. Okay, the top of the valve cover on the passenger side of the car has a 1/4-inch bolt that's holding in a vacuum hose. Assembly. If you know what that does, give me a comment. And the top of the valve cover on the passenger side of the motor has 1/7/16 bolt on it. Okay, now it's time to reveal what's under the valve cover on the passenger side of the motor. Parts of the valve cover gasket. Don't look like any surprises. Not like the other side, which had broken rockers and broken and bent push rods. So this one's looking fairly good at this point. Okay, on with the rest of removing the intake manifold. Time to remove the coil bracket held on by 1/9/16 bolt. It's just a little sharp bolt. Mine looks almost new on the threads. I'm removing the 2 wires to the top of the coil, held in by 2 5/16 nuts. There's 2 yellow looking wires going into a connector that connects to the positive side of the coil, and you have a black wire that's off the negative side going to the distributor. Another wire just unsnaps. Okay, can y'all remember that this clamp hose bracket is underneath the coil bracket facing this way. Well, can't remember. I'll just play the video back. Oh, vacuum hose, where do you go? There's a broken vacuum hose that I'm going to have to figure out where it goes. Is there a diagram somewhere showing where all these vacuum hoses go? If you know of one, please comment below. Well, this one just pulls off here. But I don't know where that one's going to. I know it's broken and it's coming out of the firewall to this point, but I guess I'll figure it out later. I'm just recording these vacuum hoses so I can put them back where they go. Got a lot of vacuum hoses. There's a hose that goes around there. Yeah. Oh, I just unplugged it. Oh, it broke. There's this, looks like the Bermuda Triangle of hoses, vacuum hoses. Yeah, I see where that one broke. Yeah, that one broke off right there. It's hooked into a apparatus. Does anybody know what that does? Or if it's needed? I know there's a hose missing on that end, and there's a hose underneath it that goes to this, which is broken off of that. So I assume that has something to do with the smog apparatus that came with this car. I assume that hose that went there went to the smog pump. I call it a smog pump. That was on the car at one time. That's been removed. But there you have here's another vacuum hose that I don't know exactly where it goes. I'll figure it out. I know one end of it is going over there. around there, and I think that's the end that broke off of that Bermuda triangle of hoses. Now, Jesus, show me where the hoses go when I go back to assembling this car. Alright, a couple more things I'm going to have to remove before I can lift the intake manifold. Then we can take a peek inside and check out what was the reason why the push rod broke. Find the other end of the push rod that fell into the center of the motor. Okay, I also have this hose coming from the intake manifold to the heater valve, and the other end of the line goes to the heater coil inside through the firewall in the car, into the car. So disconnecting another vacuum hose from that Bermuda triangle of vacuum hoses. This is connecting to that smog apparatus. Hadn't done anything since 1973. Guess in case you want to connect that hose back up, it goes right there. Okay, I'm getting there. Remove the water pump intake fitting. Or outtake fitting. Yeah, looks like it's seen its better days. Will need to be replaced. There's the thermostat. And the gasket. There's a nut that was on top of the intake port. And here's the bolt that was on the left-hand side, the passenger side of the water intake pipe. Okay, removing another vacuum hose. Right there. On into a port to the intake manifold. Removing another vacuum hose that's going to the distributor. Vacuum hose that's going to the distributor. This connects right there. Another vacuum hose coming from that port goes to this here. This pulls off of there. Now I'm free to remove this from the manifold. I'm also free to remove this Now I can get to these boats. The boats are 9/16 boats boating the intake manifold to the heads. I'll be getting in there with a box wrench. Now, at this time, I should be free to remove my manifold. Okay, I'm just taking my cheater pipe and prying around the side of the intake manifold to break the seal. There it is.
Yeah.
Would have never got that. Okay, this is what I ended up with on cylinder 3. I have a good rocker on the exhaust side, the valve, but I have a bent push rod on the exhaust rocker, push rod on the exhaust side, and I ended up with a broken rocker on the intake side, and it had a good straight push rod on the intake side of that cylinder. Now, cylinder 4, I ended up with that broken push rod on the intake side. There's a part that was underneath the valve cover and the push rod, and this is the part I got out of the valley of the center of the engine after I removed the intake manifold, and it had a good rocker arm on the intake side, but it had a bad, cracked, destroyed rocker on the exhaust side of the cylinder 4, and it had a straight push rod on the exhaust side of cylinder 4. These were all the pieces I was able to fish out from underneath the valve cover. There was 3 pieces. I don't have a clue where the other pieces are. I might have got ground up and went through the push rod hole, or I don't know. Same thing on cylinder 3. This is the only part I found for the damaged rocker in that area. Well, anyway, I got some parts ordered, and just as soon as I get those parts, I will assemble it and let you know.